Running a small co-working space means wearing too many hats all the time. Community builder, marketer, bricklayer, chef, therapist, all at once. It's exhausting. That's why we started the Community Builder Cohort. It's where people who run small spaces can stop spinning their wheels and start making real progress. One member slashed their admin hours with one simple workflow shift. Another launched a newsletter they've been putting off for months and months. Yet another hosted a Sunday market that reignited their local community. If you're tired of fighting it out alone, check the Community Builder Cohort link in the show notes or contact Emily or me directly. Hello, folks. It is the Co-working Values podcast, and in our studio today, I have Sam. Sam, what are you known for, and what would you like to be known for?
Hello, I am Sam Sundius. I am known as a visual artist and a coach who works with creatives and entrepreneurs, mostly in like neurodivergence and neuroplasticity. Those are all of the things I want to be known for, as just like neurodivergent goddess who makes really good bread and is also a kick-ass visual artist.
I love that. That's one of the best answers ever. Okay, we got to keep on track here because I can see how you and me are going to go. Oh, we're going to go to like all around this place. What is this Art of Undiscipline thing? Because that's the name of your. Would you say your brand or your website? And then sort of weave out of that into a bit of like ADHD-ness.
Yeah, it's what I call my my coaching practice, Art of Undiscipline, because it's undisciplined rather than it's like doing its own thing rather than being in discipline. Um, and it's what I call my stuff, but it's also like a guiding principle to a lot of what I do, which is to figure out how to like lean into the way that your brain and body is already working rather than try to like displace how like the uniqueness and how you show up in the world by putting some external routine or expectations on yourself. So I'm not like anti-discipline. I just have witnessed in so many ways how like especially creatives and entrepreneurs, especially neurodivergents, tend to use self-discipline to beat themselves up rather than to like help us achieve our goals.
I already feel at home. There's I until we chatted with on Jess Kieran's finance circle last week, I kind of knew a little bit when you talked about that a little bit, and I thought, you know what, I do view discipline in a I'm doing it all wrong. I've actually was it like a week ago or something? I just feel better already. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
So I remember there's a guy called Neil Usher who's been a guest on this podcast, and we're at the Workspace Design Show, which is a thing in London, and everyone was like shouting about neurodivergent, and he's like, most people, if they were that critically neurodivergent, they wouldn't even leave their house. Like they've got amazing support systems in place. They wouldn't, you don't have to rebuild your co-working space or your office to accommodate every strain of neurodivergent. And then he explained a bit more than, like here's what we're looking for. So in your experience, what are those myths flying around about ADHD and neurodiversity and all that kind of stuff?
Oh wow. um that that's gonna be a real long list. But I think coming in cold on this conversation, right? Like I don't have a lot of context as to like what's being discussed about neurodivergence and like co-working spaces. um but like responding to what you just said, this idea that like like accessibility is so important. I'm disabled in like a fun gaggle of different ways. And so I think really thinking through and being intentional about accessibility, like it can't be overstated, but the importance of that can't be overstated. But at the same time, what you just said is like it's really true, right? It's like you make something for everyone, you've made it for no one. So it's like how to curate a space and how to like I think a really important thing is there probably shouldn't be like a fixed rule book. That is already a big thing in neurodivergent life, right? Is like we don't have a one and done system for the rest of our lives. Like we find things that work, and when they stop working, we create a practice of finding something else that's going to replace it. And I think, that a co-working space that, like, or we're talking about accessibility, but I know one of your values is community, right? When you have community, it's also being able to respond to like what best fits and supports that community, which is going to be different in a lot of ways. But I have some ideas on like how you go about at least starting to craft a space that can start to feel like home for neurodivergent folks, and like especially ADHDers.
I think like when you said there's like no rule book, um, I had a little wow as you said that, because I think even the way we present stuff is like, this is how you need to do it, and it's totally unintentional. And maybe people don't pick it up in that way, but there is like, this is this is how you deal with wheelchairs getting into a building. You need a ramp, and it's not like that with neurodivergence, is it? The go on.
No, no, I mean, you're totally right. I think with all kinds of disability too, it's like we're rarely disabled in just one way. So it's like this. I think there's a part of, there's rules and policies right in place about how you need to make something accessible. Um, but if we're looking at it from the perspective of like collective care and mutuality, then these things don't have to be fixed. There's a little bit of like this lag of ableism that says that like disabled people like need to be exactly like fit exactly into these rules, or need to be totally clear on what exactly it is that they need. And so we can make a space exactly like that and then not have to think about it anymore. Like you have your wheelchair ramp, like you're done. You know what I mean? Whereas like community is not like that. Community grows and evolves and changes. And if someone's need change, then the space changes to be able to support them. And I think sometimes we avoid that because rules feel like maybe more manageable. Like you just have like a checklist and you could be done with it. Rather than like when something sounds too open ended, it can feel like you're not quite sure how to get into it. But there's ways still to at least start to move in that direction.
And what is like, whether you go to, like an artist studio like you do, or a co-working space, or a work cafe or something like that, somewhere where you're going to like sit down with the intention of doing, at least attempting some kind of focused work. What, as, how would you, as you look around, what makes you, how could a, sorry, get my question three times backwards here. So
Take your
what
time.
could a,
I'm here for it.
oh, it's been a long day. What could a workspace do to speak to people like you and me? Like, instead of saying neurodivergent friendly, because that sets this expectation of like, I don't know what it sets an expectation of, but how could it say like we are empathetic to the needs of neurodivergent people without looking like it's really, I don't know, spin marketing or neurodivergent washing, or like it knows what it's doing?
Yeah, totally. I think I mean, yeah, that's a very cool and very big question. Let me see how I can take this.
So things like saying free headphones for all neurodivergent people is like maybe a bit of an overkill. Um, but
Yeah, yeah, I think well, I guess as far as like the marketing language, I think maybe that comes naturally after like again, as you it's not so much a thing as a practice, right? I feel like I'm still being really vague. Let me take it this way. So a thing that like like when we start to think about disability and neurodivergence, it's about reshaping an environment rather than like we think of accommodations as like fixing a person to fit better into that environment, rather than like reshaping the environment to like better support that person, so that like that person doesn't have to work so hard. um and free headphones can be really cool. Like a headphone requirement for other people can also be like something that like all of a sudden like if I'm autistic, which I am, and I love my noise canceling headphones, but I can't always wear them. Sometimes I like sometimes they'll like it feels too heavy on my head and everything. But if there's noise, if there's like tons of like people like making lots of noise around me, then like I kind of need them, and I'm sort of stuck in this space of like I can't adapt to what's happening in the environment. But if there's like a headphone requirement and there's like relatively, you know, I'm not listening to like other people's computers or so much their other conversations and stuff like that, and I kind of have that flexibility, like all of a sudden that's a huge relief for me. That's energy coming back into my brain. Where we started in this conversation, um, uh, 37 minutes late because of my crazy hectic morning, was talking about time blindness and time management. Like one, like really like kind of like very lo-fi way to like make life easier for ADHDers and people who struggle with time management is to just put clocks everywhere. Just put like so that like we're you know, we think well I could just check the time on my phone, or I could just, you know, I can just check the time on my computer, but it's not about, it's like about seeing the time without needing to think I need to check the time, right? Because that's where we miss the beat. We don't have that signal that says you should check the time. If we're able to like, if there's like clocks on every wall and like you kind of can't miss what time it is, then like you're constantly taking in that information automatically without creating an extra effort. So like even for me, I'm in this little like 100 square foot studio. It's not little, it's very big and I love it very much. But it's not a, you know, it's not a fucking giant space, and I'm here alone, but I have two clocks in here, in addition to all of my devices, so that if ever I'm on a call, I'm paying attention to like, you know, I'm focused on a client or whatever, I can still like, I still like in my peripheral vision, I'm noticing the time go by, and it just like it changes. It helps me get home faster. It makes sure that I eat lunch on time. Like it changes my whole day because I'm not front loading the effort by being like I need to remember to check the time in the fucking first place. So like it's like these little like environmental shifts. Um, I think you know, like again, not knowing what exactly the accessibility requirements are of co-working spaces. I think I think being thoughtful about the community either that you already have, or the one that resembles mostly like the community that you work with, or that you live with if you are a neurodivergent person. Like I think leaning into that stuff in like a holistic way, then it eventually starts to come across, I mean, pretty fast will start to come across in your marketing and how you present your space. Like we have so many subtle ways of recognizing each other in the wild, you know, neurodivergence and other neurodivergence, that like I think you said this really beautiful thing before of like something that I said and you were like, oh, it felt like coming home or whatever. And like I think that's so often how we feel when we see each other, and when there's that kind of like when we're creating space for each other rather than like trying to, when we're creating space for each other to be where we are and to like have an easier time, rather than like so many accommodations are like trying to get us to be neurotypical or trying to get us to catch up and play into this like catch up narrative. um so like really, how do you make it more okay for someone to be where they are? I have clocks everywhere because I'm not trying to be someone who doesn't have time blindness. I have clocks everywhere because I am someone who has time blindness, and so like that's okay because I'm never not looking at what time it is, or, you know, except for this morning when I was super late for a call.
That's as you were saying that, I was reminded of that thing you said about like we need to meet our brain where it is. That was really well. I know that you know, when you hear something, you go, "That's what I've been trying to say for all this time." You know, I need to meet my brain where it is rather than try and bend it to this like discipline thing. I've got so my next question is around this. Is I'm looking for opinion here, which is this comes up a lot. Is How so when I'm sitting in a workspace and you said like with the headphones and stuff like that, like where's the line for you for the responsibility of the place to provide this environment, and then you to go, this isn't the place for me. So if I walk into, you know, a bar playing a certain type of music, with a certain type of political persuasion in there, I'll be like, oh, this is not my people, and I'll have to go over here, to the Bernie Sanders bar playing David Bowie. Like how, when's the line for you to remove yourself from that situation because you are not in that wrong situation, and where's the line for me as a provider of any type of space to go, sorry, I didn't manage to get that done.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that line is a lot more spiritual than physical. Um, but I can give you a harder answer than that.
That's a great
Um,
answer, but carry on.
but I think it's like it's more. I think that's the thing is we're looking for like a really explicit threshold. But I think a feeling is a lot more the thing. I think as a provider, we need to agree to be invested in mutuality, and like accessibility is an extension of mutuality. So if it's more helpful to think about it as like I want to make this a safe and fulfilling and fun space. I think like fun is underrated. I want to make this a safe and fulfilling and fun space for the people who are coming here, and that's going to be my guiding principle. Then like wherever you absolutely need to kind of like have limits because of whatever reason, you're at least you're in this again this practice rather than this checklist.
Yeah.
Um, and I think I mean and so like and then for those of us who are like seeking out a space, um I'll come back to what you said before is like what's this like what feels like coming home, or like a coach in one of my networks describes it as like what feels like moving towards something and what feels like moving away from something. So, like, is going into this space that maybe isn't perfectly suited to you, does that feel like moving away from yourself and your needs and your authenticity to like try and make something work? Or does it feel like there's something here and I want to be a part of this community? And so it feels like even though this is a little bit outside your comfort zone, you're moving towards something by being in that space. Um, and my whole practice is based on is based on supporting people's brains, and I work, I would say almost exclusively with neurodivergence because neurotypicals tend to not be able to understand how I speak or how I operate. You know what I mean? And like big on accessibility and all of that stuff, but like I still have like my space is still not for everyone. My space like still has like it's like I want as many people to feel comfortable as possible, but like I'm not going to stop fucking cursing, for example. Like that's just a part of what happens in my space. My space has a very dark sense of humor. My space is like very quick to be irreverent. And like my space honors abolition and collective liberation. And there's a lot of very awesome people where like this is not the space for them, so it's not I think like there's something that gets again like so overwhelming and about the idea that like everyone like accessibility means everyone feels comfortable here, accessibility means everyone has access. um I think as long as you're like it doesn't there isn't. Oh, I'm losing the thread. um
Everyone feels welcome,
It's
or everyone
something
has
about
access.
yeah, again, it's like it's something about the energy behind why you're doing it. If you're doing it to exclude people because it's inconvenient to have someone who's autistic or immunocompromised, or using a mobility device or whatever in your space, that's shitty energy. That's bad. That's bad accessibility. If your energy is you're invested in the people who are there, but like the flavor of your environment is not everyone's taste, that's really different. That's a really different move. And so I think yeah, yeah.
I'm with that too, because frequently I find myself writing. Like a reoccurring theme in here is in this podcast, and all the people we've podcasted with is some version of a safe space where people can sit down and connect with themselves and get their work done and everything like that. So it's not like safe as in out of harm's way, but the kind of conversation we're having here. And so I will just write, where everyone feels welcome. And every time I write that, it's like, oh, that sounds like, that's impossible. Like and I still publish it sometimes, but that is not the reality. And people, I can't remember who it is. It's like, you don't want to like nastily exclude people in that negative energy kind of way you said, but you want to make people feel that. And you can comment on this and disagree, because I'm getting very enthusiastic about my answer, but
No, I love it.
you are allowed to come back with like, well, that's a crap idea, Mitchell. But so people walk in and they go, this is nice, but it's not for me, rather than like, oh, I'm scared, I've got to get out of here as soon as possible, or I'm getting sucked into your vortex of doom. That kind of wave.
Yeah. No, totally. I think, and it's funny too, because I feel like you could say something like, where you feel welcome, and then the you on the other end of that will know who they are, kind of thing. But I mean, like that, like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. That's exactly this energy of like what does it feel like when you leave the space? Like, does it, like, do you, if it's not for you, do you leave the space feeling like, I'm gonna keep looking, or whatever, this is just not for me, or it's not my taste? Or like, do you leave the space feeling disheartened or disappointed, or like something was taken away from you, or whatever, like in that hypothetical bar you were describing earlier, where there's, like, I don't know, Kid Rock playing and MAGA posters or something. I really
Yeah.
that's what I was picturing when you were
That's
describing that.
that's a very good example. There's so just to sort of move on into this bit. I'm gonna explain this, where this question's coming from. So at different conferences in the co-working industry, we've always done something about inclusion and diversity as an unconference topic. And then one year, and like there's like 300 people at the conference, and 6 people would come to the session. If we'd done like cupcake making, more people would have come. Avocado cupcake making would have drawn a bigger crowd than inclusion and diversity in co-working. And this is back in like 2017. And then one year we said the business case for inclusion and accessibility and diversity, and like 55 people showed up, and it was a really good conversation. So like, what would you say is the genuine business case for being aware of everything we're talking about in this podcast? Not like having a marketing plan that panders to neurodivergent people, but the sustainability part of it.
Yeah, I think you're touching on something really important, which is that uh in the capitalist mainstream, ableist mainstream that we live in, the idea is everyone in like a McDonald's, Starbucks, like kind of like trying to, like, like capture the market share. Try, how do you get more and more and more and more people into your thing? And it's more about the bringing more people in and getting more money than it is about what you're actually serving to that community, or how you're actually like showing up in the world. And I think for a lot of people in the coaching space, even though that still exists, right? But like the work that you do, the work that I do, and it is this trade off of like authenticity and something meaningful and more sustainable, rather than just like the thing that needs to keep on growing and eating and moving forward. And I think like again like the way that we tend to talk about accessibility is still, and like the policies and the requirements, et cetera, like I'm not like, disabled people fought real fucking hard for those things, so I'm definitely not bashing them. And same with like diversity, equity, inclusion. Like people have fought really hard for these things, and like they are a huge foot in the door. But the way that they're integrated into a capitalist, imperialist, ableist society, white supremacist, ableist society, um, are still limited to how they can be included without interrupting those like power hierarchies and things like that. And true liberation like comes from authenticity and sustainability and building community and mutuality, rather than trying to figure out how you get more feet in the door. And like we're often put in a place where we're trying to figure out how to balance those two things. But I think as long as like we're, because we need income because we live in this society, and then also because we want to serve more people, but I think recognizing that like the way that most of these conversations are happening is different from how we actually want to be operating opens up a lot more space for us. So I think like like there isn't, I wouldn't say, and I'm not a business person. I like help people with the spirituality of their business, not like the numbers shit. Which is funny because I've actually run other people's businesses very successful, but it's just not the way that I speak. Anyway, I I I think there's to say like what the business advantage of like DEI or accessibility is, when like it's really like those are really just kind of maybe even like ideas or jumping off points for how we can craft a space that is sustainable and feeds and nourishes people and is creating community and mutuality, um like a healthy space, rather than like you do these things and your business will be better. And then it's just like, rather than again like just like a kind of like checklist, and like how to grow your business or how to fix your business or whatever.
There's I can't remember where it is. Like one of the events we did, this example came up, and it was a co-working space. And I wish I could remember what. But basically, it was a co-working space that was run by someone who had a deaf partner, so they really understood the deaf universe. And all the deaf people in town went to that co-working space, and because they were like, "Oh yeah, come over here, mate." It's like, they know you just be able to come in and get on with it. They know what they're doing. So it wasn't exclusively, but then this thing, and it's like if you started a space, the intent of that space was to just make people feel welcome, and it just happened to be where all the deaf people went because they got that what everyone wants in a business, like that word of mouth referral. But if you'd set it up with an intent to capture the deaf market in that town, it would have a very different energy to it. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think I mean in how I understand it, yeah, that like a lot of times some of these spaces like end up like if you look at it like that, right? Like this space is so catered to like the deaf community that there's almost like this idea of not being like fully inclusive the way that we think it should be on the pie chart, spreadsheet, whatever. But like how rich and important that is, that it serves that community so thoroughly and so specifically, and something that's like way otherwise like underserved, and I think that's exactly what I meant earlier about like when you go into it with like this openness towards mutuality and like supporting your community, like of course your space isn't going to be for everyone. And there's so many benefits when a deeply marginalized community like the deaf community, um like um like many Black communities, immigrant communities, like are able to have a space where like it isn't necessarily like fully welcoming to everyone, because like you because we don't drop white supremacy and ableism at the door always. And like, so having that kind of like that privacy, that intimacy of being with like people with shared lived experience and everything, like that's really vital towards like creating like a like having like a stronger, wider community. And I think that that's a really important thing to continue to hold on to and uplift, even as we have conversations about DEI and accessibility. Like I think sometimes I hear these conversations, kind of drives me crazy, because it feels like the end goal is to have everything be like this like perfect demographic representative proportion of like the entire for me like the entire United States, or like the perfect demographic representation of like New York. And it's like it really needs to be just like a supportive and healthy representation of the community that it's based in. And I
Yeah,
think if you don't know what that community is, that's really your first step. It's not figuring out how to make it, better for ADHDers. It's naming, or is your community a community of ADHDers? Like is your community like who are you serving? And then from there, I think a lot of answers really start to fall into place.
delicious. There's just before we go, I have to shout this out. The amount of times I've heard, I, we know we have a lot of people in the London Co-working Assembly, and they run women. Not, I'm going to say it like they run women-only places, or they run a space for women. And so many guys go, "Oh, does that mean men are excluded?" And it's such an immature response.
Yeah.
And there's I'm not going to go anymore, but like it's amazing that their first reaction is I'm like, and usually they're like white middle-aged men going, well, I feel really excluded. I know, it's terrible, isn't it? But that bit annoys the fuck out of me. And then women like come and say, do you think it's all right if I do this? Like, can you imagine a man walking around going, I think I might set up a golf club for men and asking permission? There we go. Is there anything you want to add to that before we like head for the departure lounge?
No, oh wow. No, can we come back to this in like a future conversation? Because this is there's a lot here, and it's really important. But I mean, like my immediate thing is like, yeah, I've that is so a thing. And I think like that there's got to be a way we can better handle those kinds of transitions and stuff. It's like because that defensiveness is like, I'm not gonna, there's no excuse, I'm not gonna justify it, right? But like to a certain degree, it's like it's real. And it picks up momentum when we can't figure out how to thoroughly enough interrupt it. It's like, yeah, you feel excluded and it feels terrible, and it feels so salient and urgent to you right now because you haven't experienced that before, because this is the first time that you're feeling that. And like you don't know how to just sit with that feeling. You've never had to sit with it because you've never been unsafe also expressing that feeling very much in the moment, is the other part of it, right? Like anytime we're marginalized, we like there's like we need to sit with our discomfort because we're not safe to voice it out loud. We don't think that anyone's going to like all of a sudden bend over backwards to then accommodate us. But there's like some sense with like people who speak up like that they will. I see this with uh, uh, like white students sitting in a class talking about oppression and racism for the first time, is like kind of like the this very like urgent salient need to speak up because you've never been forced to like sit with the silence a little bit in that. And as someone who like specializes in a lot of neuroplasticity, there's like active things that we could be doing to like help people to just like integrate this new thing. And any defensiveness is a little bit of like nervous system activation, like survival instinct kind of coming online, even when it's bullshit, like even when they have no reason to feel threatened. Like it's like the perceived threat is real enough that like we can make the space safer for everyone by figuring out how to kind of like take those reactions a little bit more head on. I feel like I went a little rambly. I went a little
That
bit.
was fine. I was with the
Okay.
sister. Do you
That's a really good point.
do you happen to know Josh Johnson, the comedian?
No.
So he's I'm going to put a link in the show notes to this. So he is like, I mean, what you hope from a comedian. He's really funny, but he did this set at the beginning of January where he talked about how Elon. So you just say Elon now. Elon got in a fight on Twitter with MAGA, and you're going to have to watch it, folks, because I'm not going to do it justice. But basically, like Elon said, I really support this visa that allows people to come and work in tech. And they're like, but I thought you said that, this was all make America great again. Yeah, but I need these people because they're like really useful for my company, so they can have visas. And then MAGA like backlashed to him and said, and in that moment, which is the point before I lose you all, folks, is Elon went from being, Elon vice president to a South African, and this like avalanche of racism got launched on him, and he didn't know what to do. And Josh is a black guy, and he says, it was really interesting seeing Elon react to this on Twitter because, when you've experienced so much, and this is what I really like the way he articulated it, when you've experienced like racism and sexism and all this kind of stuff, you know how to deal with it. But when you've never had it at all, you like react like Elon did on Twitter, which he explains in the comedy sketch, and it is hilarious, unless you're Elon. But it is a thing. Like when we moved to Spain, I'm a straight white European Catholic guy walking around Spain, which is a white Christian country, but I still feel kind of othered because I'm English, and even though I knew loads about it anyway, when I get here, it's a lovely place here, don't get me wrong, but like, I am cautious of how I talk in the bakers sometimes because I don't want to, look like the English guy. I lost my thread there, sorry.
That's all right.
It was connected to the Josh Johnson sketch. Anyway, do you want to add anything to that, and then we'll go?
I think there's too much that I want to add to that. But that's the beauty of a really rich conversation, is you want to keep going forever. No, this was great. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
So, folks, I know you turned up for a neurodivergent conversation that sailed into a geopolitical othering conversation. But Sam, where can we find you online? We're going to put links into it all in the show notes. So shout out websites and Instagrams and anything else you do.
So the best place to find me is on my website, artofundiscipline.com. And the best way to stay or to hear the put clocks on the wall, leaning into geopolitical collective liberation stuff, is to sign up for my emails there. I work with clients one-on-one, but I also run some really cool groups, like my neurospicy knitting group and stuff like that. So lots of different ways to hang out with me.
Thanks very much for your time and attention today, folks. The place to go is Substack, and if you Google Co-working Values Podcast, and there's the LinkedIn group there, there's the Workspace Design Show, which is coming up at the time we are publishing this, and also we want to make sure you all get involved in European Co-working Day, which is where you're going to run a little event in your place, and it will, if we all do that together, it will elevate the public understanding of co-working and its value to the local community and everything like that in a way never seen on earth before. So wherever you are in the world today, be careful out there. It is a jungle.